Good morning, friends. Today we are going to discuss the paper of Finance and Accounts with regards to promotion exercise 2021. As compared to the other papers of promotion exercise, the syllabus of Finance and Accounts is very limited, and if you have a basic idea of insurance accounts, you should definitely attempt this paper, as this paper will save your time during preparation and during the exams also. So before getting into the detailed discussion of the subject, let's take an overview of last promotion exercise. So the paper of finance and accounts is clubbed together with IT, and there will be total 30 questions, out of which 5 or 6 questions will be asked from IT and the remaining 24-25 questions will be asked from finance and accounts. The topic wise breakup for finance and accounts will be from investment there will be 8 questions, from preparation of financial statements there will be 7 questions, from accounting standards, guidelines and regulation there will be 3 or 4 questions, from accounting ratios there will be 2 questions, from depreciation there will be 2 questions, from income tax there will be 1 or 2 questions. Some question may be asked from general abbreviations and some miscellaneous topics like BRS and all. From GST, as of now question has not been asked, but as GST is an important topic of insurance accounts, there is a possibility of questions being asked from this topic also. So in this discussion we will cover these all topics, and as you can see, out of 30 you have to attempt 25 questions only, and you can take the liberty of attempting all 25 questions from accounts only. Let's start with the most important topic, investment. From investment, questions are being asked from IRDA Investment Regulation 2000, which is further amended in 2016. Before getting into the detailed discussion of IRDA Investment Regulation 2016, let's discuss some of the important definitions which will be useful to understand the regulation. Investment assets. Investment assets are basically the assets which can be invested by an insurance company. This constitutes of shareholders funds representing solvency margin and policy holders funds at their carrying value. Money market instruments. Money market instruments are the short term instruments with maturity not more than 1 year. Some examples of money market instruments are certificate of deposit, commercial paper, reverse repo, treasury bill, call, notice, term money, CBLO, etc. Now shareholders funds, which is also called net worth of the company. Shareholder fund comprise of share capital plus all the reserves and surplus except revaluation reserve and fair value change account. This is calculated as at balance sheet date, represented by investment of fund held in business beyond solvency margin. Policyholders fund. Policyholders fund is the total of estimated liability for outstanding claims including IBNR and IBNER, URR, catastrophe reserve, premium deficiency and other liability net of other investment. Approved investment. Approved investment are basically secured investment with zero or very low risk. By definition, approved investments are debenture secured by a first charge which has paid interest in full, debenture secured by a floating charge on all its assets of a company with which has paid dividends on its equity shares, preference shares of any company which has paid dividends on its equity shares for at least 2 preceding consecutive years, equity shares of any listed company on which not less than 10% dividends has been paid for at least 2 preceding consecutive years, immovable property situated in India, provided that the property is free from all encumbrance, loans on policies of life insurance within their surrender value issued by him, fixed deposit with banks. Now let's talk about investment regulation for general insurance companies. IRDA has framed investment regulation for general insurance company, in which IRDA has given capping for investment of their total investment assets. The capping are as follows: out of total investment assets, minimum 20% of investment should be made in central government securities. Minimum 30% of investment should be made on central government security, state government security, or other approved security. This 30% includes the 20% of central government securities also. Investment in approved investment should not exceed maximum 70%. Investment in other investment should not be more than 15%. Investment in housing and loans to state government for housing and firefighting equipments by way of subscription or purchase of investment in housing and investment in infrastructure should not be less than 15%. Now, investment in housing and infra can be clubbed together with category 1 and 2, that is central government security and approved security, and the minimum requirement of 15% can be utilized in central government security and approved securities also. Other than capping, IRDA has framed regulation for rating of investments also. All investment in assets or instruments which are capable of being rated as per market practice shall be made on the basis of credit rating of such assets or instrument. No approved investment shall be made in instruments if such instruments are capable of being rated but are not rated. The rating should be done by a credit rating agency registered under SEBI Credit Rating Agency Regulations 1999. Now the ratings are corporate bonds or debentures rated not less than AA or its equivalent, and A1 or its equivalent rating for short-term bonds, debentures, certificate of deposit and commercial paper by a credit rating agency registered under SEBI Credit Rating Agency Regulation 1999 would be considered as approved investment. Investment in equity share listed on a registered stock exchange should be made in actively traded and liquid instrument. It means equity shares other than those defined as thinly traded as per SEBI regulation and guidelines governing mutual funds issued by SEBI from time to time. Investment in debt instruments rated AA minus or below for long term and below A1 or equivalent for short term debts instruments shall be part of other investments. Not more than 8% of investment in debt instruments, including central government securities, state government security, or other approved security, in case of general insurer, shall have a rating of A or below or equivalent rating for long term. Not less than 65% of investment in debt instruments, including central government security, state government security, and other approved security, in case of general insurer, shall be in sovereign debts AAA or equivalent rating for long term, and sovereign debts A1 plus or equivalent for short term instruments. Now let's talk about exposure norms. Exposure norms are capping for the insurance companies with regards to investment in a single company, a group of company, or in an industry. For investment in equity, preference share, and convertible debentures, limit for investee company is 10% of outstanding equity share at their face value. Limit for group of companies is not more than 15%, and limit for industry sector is also not more than 15%. Limit for investment in debt, including commercial papers, loan and other permitted investments. For a single company, it is 10% of the paid up share capital plus free reserve. For group of company, it is same as 15%, and for industry sector also it is same as 15%. This exposure norm by IRDA is designed in 3 different categories. The categories are: first category is of the companies where their total investment asset is less than 50,000 crores. Second category is where investment asset is between 50,000 to 2,50,000 crores, and the third category is for the companies where investment assets is more than 2,50,000 crores. If the total investment asset is less than 50,000 crores, then the limit for investee company in equity will be 10% of outstanding equity shares at their face value, and limit for investee company in debts will be 10% of paid up share capital plus free reserve. If the investment asset is between 50,000 crores to 2,50,000 crores, the limit for investee company will be 12% in case of equity and 12% in case of debts. If the investment assets is more than 2,50,000 crores, then the limit for investee company will be 15% in case of equity and 15% in case of debts. As we have seen, the exposure norms is for single company, group of company and industry sector. But this industry sector norm shall not apply for investment made in infrastructure facility sector. All investment made in infrastructure investee company shall be subject to only group exposure norms. Exposure in public limited infrastructure investee company will be either 20% of outstanding equity shares at their face value in case of equity, or 20% in case of debts. This 20% in case of debts can be increased by additional 5% with the prior approval of Board of Insurer. Investment in securitized assets, that is mortgage backed securities, asset backed securities or security receipts, both under approved and other investment categories, shall not exceed 5% of investment assets in case of general insurance companies. Approved investment in mortgage backed securities and asset backed securities with underlying housing or infrastructure assets shall not exceed 5% of investment assets in case of general insurance companies. The exposure limit for financial and insurance activities shall stand at 25% of investment assets for all insurance companies. Investment in fixed deposits shall not exceed 15% of investment assets in case of general insurance companies. The investee company debt exposure in housing finance company rated not less than AA plus shall be up to 20% of paid up share capital plus free reserves, and debentures bond or amount under regulation 9B1, whichever is lower. As mentioned earlier, the 20% limit mentioned herein can be further increased by an additional 5% with prior approval to Board of Insurer. All exposure norm applicable to group promoter group shall be applicable to all investment made in a housing finance company. Now let's talk about returns to be submitted by an insurer with regards to investment. Every insurance company is required to submit 7 forms which is related to investment. These forms should be submitted on a quarterly basis, and time limit for submission is within 30 days of the end of the quarter. In every promotion exercise, one question is being asked from these forms, so it is advised to read and remember the form number and description of the form. These forms are verified by principal officer, chief of investment or chief of finance of that particular insurance company. To ensure that all the investment guidelines are being followed and investments are being done in a profitable manner, every insurance company shall constitute an investment committee which shall consist of a minimum of 2 non-executive director of the insurer, the chief executive officer, chief of finance, chief risk officer, chief of investment division and the appointed actuary. The board of the insurance company shall ensure that the chief of finance, chief of investment and the chief risk officer shall fulfill the minimum qualification requirement specified in regulation guidelines issued by IRDA. The decision taken by the investment committee shall be recorded and be open to inspection by the officers of the authority. Investment policy. Every insurance company shall draw up an investment policy and place the same before its board of director for its approval. Every insurance company shall have a model code of conduct to prevent insider trading
of officers involved in various levels of investment operations in compliance with SEBI Prohibition of Insider Trading Regulation 1992 as amended from time to time and place the same before its board of directors for its approval. Basically, every insurance company should design an investment policy which will be profitable for them, and the investment policy should also be designed in such a way that it should prohibit insider trading and other illegal practices.
Till now we have discussed about IRDA investment regulations. Let us briefly discuss about Insurance Act 1938 provisions which are related to investment. Section 27A of Insurance Act 1938 deals with the investment by life insurance companies. Section 27B of Insurance Act deals with the investment by non-life insurance companies. Section 27C and 27D were inserted by IRDA Act in 1999. Section 27C prohibits an insurance company from investing the fund outside India, whereas Section 27D gives the regulation making power to IRDA. Section 27C says that investment outside India can be made out of only of shareholders fund which is in excess of solvency margin. Solvency margin is basically the excess of assets over its liability of any insurance company. Section 27D deals with manner and condition of investment, and Section 28 deals with statement of investment of assets written, which we have already discussed, that total 7 forms and their period of filing and the limit of filing returns. As we have already discussed about the rating of investments, and the rating should be done by a rating agency registered under SEBI Credit Rating Agency Regulation 1999. Some of the rating agencies are CRISIL, ICRA, CARE, Fitch, etc. These are the Indian rating agencies. Some of the foreign rating agencies are S&P and Moody's. This concludes the chapter of investment. Now let's talk about another important chapter, preparation of financial statement by an insurance company. Financial statement of an insurance companies are prepared based on Insurance Act 1938, Companies Act 2013, and IRDA preparation of financial statement and auditors report of insurance company regulation 2002. IRDA preparation of financial statement regulation 2002 has 3 schedules. Schedule A is for life insurance companies, Schedule B is for general insurance companies, and Schedule C is common for all the insurance company which deals with auditors report. In this chapter we will talk about Schedule B and Schedule C only. Schedule B of IRDA preparation of financial statement regulation 2002 has 5 parts. Part 1 deals with accounting principle for preparation of financial statements. Part 2 deals with the disclosure forming part of financial statement. Part 3 deals with general instruction for preparation of financial statements. Part 4 deals with contents of management report, and Part 5 deals with preparation of financial statement. Financial statement of insurance companies are prepared in the name of revenue account in the format form BRA. Revenue account is prepared separately for fire, marine and miscellaneous business. Then profit and loss account in format form BPL, and balance sheet in the format form BBS. Other than these 3 statements, insurance companies are required to prepare a statement for cash flow also, and as we have discussed earlier, cash flow statement can be prepared by direct method only. Other than the statements mentioned earlier, insurance companies are required to prepare 15 schedules forming part of financial statements. Schedule 1 is for net earned premium, Schedule 2 is for net earned claims, net incurred claims, Schedule 3 is for commission, Schedule 4 is for operating expense related to insurance business. Schedule 5 is for share capital. Schedule 6 is for reserve and surplus. Schedule 7 is for borrowings. Schedule 8 is for investments. Schedule 9 is for loans. Schedule 10 is for fixed assets. Schedule 11 is for cash and bank balance. Schedule 12 is for advance and other assets. Schedule 13 is for current liabilities. Schedule 14 is for provisions, and Schedule 15 is for miscellaneous expenditure. Schedule C of IRDA Financial Statement Regulation 2002 deals with auditor's report. As per the regulation, the auditor shall express their opinion on whether the balance sheet gives a true and fair value of the insurer's affairs as at the end of the financial year or the period, whether the revenue account gives a true and fair value of the surplus or the deficit for the financial year, whether the profit and loss account gives the true and fair value of the profit or loss for the financial year, whether the receipts and payments, that is cash flow account, gives a true and fair value of the receipts and payments for the financial year. Investment has been valued in accordance with the provisions of the Act and these regulations. The accounting policies selected by insurer are appropriate and are in compliance with the applicable accounting standards and with the accounting principles as prescribed in these regulations or any order or direction issued by authority in its behalf. As you all know that financial statement of an insurance company is audited by statutory auditors. These statutory auditors are appointed by CAG under section 6192 of Companies Act 2013. CAG audit of government companies is carried out as per provision of section 619 of Companies Act. In an insurance companies, mostly there are 4 types of audits: statutory audit, CAG audit, internal audit and concurrent audit. The first 3 statutory audits, CAG and internal audits, are of statutory in nature, whereas concurrent audit is not of a statutory nature. Concurrent audit of an insurance company is mostly done for investment functions. So the next topic is accounting standards. Accounting standards are the common set of principles which defines the accounting policy for any company. Every balance sheet, revenue account, cash flow statement and profit and loss account of an insurance company shall be in conformity with the accounting standards issued by Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. In total, there are 32 accounting standards, out of which some of the AS are not applicable for insurance industries, like AS3. AS3 deals with cash flow statement, but for insurance companies, it is under direct method only. AS17 deals with segment reporting. As per AS17, every company where securities are traded publicly should follow AS17, but for insurance companies, it is applicable irrespective of whether the securities of the insurance companies are traded publicly or not. AS13 deals with accounting of investment. So insurance company do not strictly follow the AS13, and it is the investment policy or investment regulation of insurance companies are governed by IRDA investment regulations. Some important accounting standards for insurance companies are AS1, which deals with disclosure of accounting policies; AS2, valuation of inventories; AS3, which we have already discussed, cash flow statement. For insurance companies, it is under direct method only. AS6, which deals with depreciation; AS10, which deals with fixed assets; AS15, accounting of retirement or terminal benefits; AS17, segmental reporting; AS18, related party disclosures; AS26, intangible assets; AS29, provision for contingent liabilities. Next topic is accounting ratios. IRDA has issued one master circular for accounting ratios, and all the companies are required to disclose some of the ratios based on that master circulars.
These ratios, some of these ratios are shown in percentage, while others are shown in number of times. So the first ratio is gross direct premium growth rate. Gross direct premium growth rate is the growth of direct premium over the previous year. The formula for GDPI growth rate is GDPI for current year minus GDPI for previous year divided by GDPI for previous year, and this ratio is shown in percentage. The next ratio is gross direct premium to net worth ratio. The formula for this ratio is GDPI divided by net worth. Net worth means the shareholders fund of the company, and this ratio is shown in number of times. Next ratio is growth rate of net worth. This ratio is similar to GDPI growth rate. The formula for this growth rate will be net worth for current year minus net worth for previous year divided by net worth for previous year, and this ratio is shown in percentage. Next ratio is net retention ratio segment wise. The formula for this ratio is net premium divided by GDPI minus RI accepted. This ratio is shown in percentage terms. Next ratio is net commission ratio segment wise. The formula for this ratio will be net commission, that is gross commission plus minus RI commission divided by net premium. This is shown in percentage terms. Expense of management to GDPI ratio. The formula for this is expense of management, that is direct commission plus operating expense divided by GDPI, and this ratio is shown in percentage terms. Net incurred claims to net earned premium. Net incurred claims means incurred claims plus minus RI claims divided by GDPI plus minus reinsurance premium plus minus reserve strain. Reserve strain is change in reserve. So the formula for net incurred claims to net earned premium is net incurred claims plus or minus reinsurance claims divided by GDPI plus or minus reinsurance premium plus minus reserve strain, and this ratio is shown in percentage terms. Combined ratio. The formula for combined ratio is net incurred claims plus expense of management plus commission divided by net written premium, and this ratio is shown in percentage terms. Underwriting balance ratio for each segment. The formula for underwriting balance ratio is operating profit or loss for each segment divided by net earned premium for that segment, and this ratio is shown in number of times. Operating profit ratio. The formula for operating profit ratio is underwriting profit plus minus investment income divided by net premium, and this ratio is shown in percentage terms. Liquid assets to liability ratios. The formula for liquid assets to the liability ratio is liquid asset for the company, that is cash and bank balances plus short-term investment and loan divided by policyholders' liabilities, that is closing claims provisions plus closing premium reserve plus deficiency premium, and this ratio is shown in number of times. Net earning ratio. The formula for net earning ratio is profit after tax divided by net premium, and it is shown in percentage terms. Return of net worth. The formula for return of net worth is profit after tax divided by net worth, and this is shown in percentage terms. Solvency margin. The formula for solvency margin is available solvency margin divided by required solvency margin, and this is shown in number of times. As per IRDA guidelines, solvency margin of any insurance company should be more than 1.5. There is a separate notification of IRDA regarding solvency margin. You are requested to read that notification in detail to have a better understanding of solvency margin and how it is calculated for insurance companies. Next topic is depreciation. Depreciation of any insurance companies is charged based on Schedule 2 of Companies Act 2013, which is applicable from 1st of April 2014. The key requirements of Schedule 2 of Companies Act 2013 are:
Methods of charging depreciation has to be disclosed. That means in the accounting policies, in the accounting policy of a particular insurance company, method of charging of depreciation needs to be disclosed. It may be written down the value method or a straight line method. Depreciation will be charged depending on the useful life of assets, and the useful life of assets can be taken from Schedule 2 of Companies Act. There is no requirement of charging 100% depreciation on assets whose actual cost does not exceed rupees 5,000. For any asset which has been used for more than 6 months for a particular financial year, 100% depreciation will be charged. For asset which is used less than 6 months for a particular financial year, 50% depreciation can be charged. Depreciation rates for the items as per Companies Act 2013 are: for office equipment it is 15%, for AC it is 15%, generators 15%, fans and electrical equipment 13.91%, general furniture 18.10%, motor car 25.89%, cycles 20%, office building 10%, residential building 5%, computers 60%, other IT equipments 60%. So next topic is income tax. Income tax rules for all the companies are same, and it is as per IT Act 1961. In this topic we will discuss about TDS rates applicable to insurance companies. So the first one is interest other than interest on securities. This comes under section 194A. The threshold limit for this section is 5,000 rupees per annum. In case of MSCT claims, the threshold limit is increased to 50,000 rupees per annum. TDS rates under this section for individual is 10%, and for other than individual also it is 10% only. Second type is contractors and subcontractors and advertisements, which comes under section 194C. Threshold limit for this section is 30,000 per payment or 1 lakh rupees per contract per annum. TDS rate for this section is 1% for individual and 2% for non-individuals. Under section 194C, if it comes under transporters, TDS will not be applicable. Condition for transporter is that he should submit his PAN and furnish a statement that he does not own more than 10 goods carriage vehicle. Otherwise, the TDS rate of 194C, that is 1% and 2%, will be applicable for transporters also. The next section is section 194D, which is insurance commission. The threshold limit is rupees 15,000 rupees per annum. TDS rates for individual is 5% and TDS rate for non-individual is 10%. Next is 194H, which is commission or brokerage other than insurance commission. Threshold limit is same, 15,000 rupees per annum. TDS rate for this section is 5% for individual and 5% for non-individuals also. Next is 194I, which is rent for land and building. Threshold limit for this section is 2,40,000 rupees per annum, and TDS rate for individual is 10% and for non-individual is also 10%. The next section is 194I, which is for rent for plant and machinery. The threshold limit is same as land and building, which is 2,40,000 rupees per annum, and TDS rates for individual is 2% and TDS rate for non-individual is also 2%. Next is fee for professional and technical services. Both professional and technical services comes under section 194J, but TDS rate for professional and technical services are different. TDS rate for technical services 2% for individual and 2% for non-individual, whereas TDS rate for professional services is 10% for individual and 10% for non-individuals. Threshold limit for both professional and technical services is same, that is 30,000 per annum.
Other than this, in section 194J, payment towards royalty in nature of consideration of sale, distribution or exhibition of cinematographic film also comes, and TDS rate for same is for individual it is 2% and for non-individual it is 2%. Next one is payment of compensation of acquisition of certain immovable property, that is 194 LA. Threshold limit for this section is 2,50,000 rupees, and TDS rate is for individual it is 10% and for non-individual also it is 10%. Next one is payment on transfer of immovable property other than agricultural land. Section for this is 194 IA. Threshold limit for this section is 50 lakhs rupees, and TDS rate for this for individual it is 1% and for non-individual also it is 1%. Next one is applicable for e-commerce operator only, that is sale of goods or provision of service facilitated by it through its digital or electronic facility or platform. The section for this is 194O. Threshold limit for this section is 5 lakhs rupees, and TDS rate is for individual it is 1%, for non-individual also it is 1%. Next section is section 195, which is payment to a non-resident. There is no threshold limit for this section, and TDS rate for this section is 31.2%, including cess of 4% for individual, and same 31.2% including cess of 4% for non-individuals also. Some of the important points with regards to TDS rates are: no surcharge or education cess or secondary and higher education cess is required to be deducted at source. Only the basic rate is to be charged by the companies. Second point is section 194C also includes the contract for carriage of person or goods. Accordingly, the hiring charges paid to cab operator exceeding rupees 1 lakh rupees per annum or rupees 30,000 per payment will be subject to TDS. That point is, in respect of all cases where PAN is not furnished, tax is deductible at 20% irrespective of the rate specified. Now let's talk about two new sections which is recently added into IT Act 1961. The sections are section 206 AB and section 206 CCA, which is effective from 1st of July 2021. As per section 206 AB, if a person does not have a PAN, and in case of an individual that has not filed income tax return for last 2 years, and the person is having a TDS credit of more than 50,000 rupees, for those person higher rate of TDS will be applicable. This TDS rate will be at twice the rate stated in the applicable section of the Act, or at twice the existing rate or rates, or at rate of rupees or at rate of 5%, whichever is higher. This means if the person has a TDS credit of 50,000 or more, and if that person has not filed IT return for previous 2 years, TDS rate will be doubled for that person, or it will be 5%, whichever is higher. A non-resident who does not have a permanent establishment in India is exempted from this new law. Next topic is GST. Till now, no question is being asked from GST in promotion exercises. But as GST has completed 4 years and it is an important part of insurance industries, it is better to discuss this topic also. Under GST, there are two kinds of mechanism: forward charge mechanism and reverse charge mechanism. Forward charge mechanism means supplier of the service is required to collect GST from the buyer and remit the same to the government. Whereas under reverse charge mechanism, it is the liability of receiver or buyer of the service to deposit GST to the government. For insurance companies, premium, it comes under forward charge mechanism. That is, we collect premium from the insured along with GST, and the GST portion is deposited to the government. Similarly, for service received by insurance companies, that is brokerage, TPA service charges or survey fee, for these things we pay GST to the party, and it is that party's responsibility to deposit the same to the government. So under forward charge mechanism, we have both liability and input. Liability is premium, where we have collected GST from the insured, or in miscellaneous income, in the same logic, we have collected GST from the party, and that GST should be remitted to the government by insurance company. On the other hand, we pay GST to some of the parties like brokers, like TPAs and surveyors, and in those cases we expect input credit from these parties. Under reverse charge mechanism, we get services from some of the party which comes under reverse charge mechanism, and for those services it is insurance company's responsibility to deposit GST to the proportion of that service to the government. Some of the services which comes under reverse charge mechanism are agency commission, advocate payments, etc. Under reverse charge mechanism, whatever is the liability we pay for current month becomes the input credit for next month. It means that the entire amount paid by a company under reverse charge mechanism for current month is claimed in the next month. GST rate for insurance service in general is 18%. It means that for all the insurance policies, insurance companies are required to collect 18% GST. But for some of the policies like motor TP policy of commercial vehicle, GST rate is 12% only. Other than these two rates, there are some exempt services also, in which insurance company need not collect GST. These services are government schemes like PMSBY or some health scheme, some state run or central government run health scheme, services provided to SEZ unit, etc. Other than the topics discussed earlier, sometimes questions are being asked from general abbreviations related to insurance companies or financial industry as a whole. Like last year, the full form of in promotion exercise for scale 1 and for scale 1 to 2, full form of SEBI was asked. So let us discuss some of the general abbreviations which may be asked in promotion exercise. So full form of SEBI is Securities Exchange Board of India. Full form of NEFT is National Electronic Fund Transfer. Full form of RTGS is Real Time Gross Settlement. Full form of AUM is Asset Under Management. Full form of NAV is Net Asset Value. Full form of MBS is Mortgage Backed Securities. Full form of ABS is Asset Backed Securities. Full form of IFRS is International Financial Reporting Standards. Full form of GAAP is Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. Full form of IASB is International Accounting Standard Board. Full form of YTM is Yield to Maturity. If you need any clarification on any of the topic discussed, or if you find any mistake in the presentation, you can write the same in the comment section. Thank you very much and all the very best for your exam.